Rowland Heights. Let me explain my background. Over 70 years ago, I was born and raised 5 miles from here in Lincoln Heights. I attended Griffin Avenue Grammar School. I graduated 52 years ago in 1964 from Abraham Lincoln High School. It was wonderful to grow up in a family-oriented, racially diverse environment. Some of the traits we found in Rowland Heights when we decided to move there in 1978. Let me add that I go back to that wonderful neighborhood of Lincoln Heights frequently, as I have been the Lincoln High School alumni president for over 5 years now. It's a quiet, excuse me, I drive there several times a week with the Lincoln administration, meeting with the Lincoln administration teachers and meeting with the current students. But the family environment can still be felt. I wish you could understand the comfort I feel returning to the homey environment I grew up in. It's the same feeling I have when I get home to my home in Rowland Heights. Even though
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry?
Thank you. Your time has expired. Thank you. If you want to submit that, you can. We'll make copies. Okay?
I'm sorry?
You can submit the rest of your testimony, and we'll pass it out. We'll make copies, okay? Because your time's expired now. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got the message. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn Ebenkamp?
Lynn Ebenkamp. Please support amending our CSDs to prohibit living suites, specifically in the unincorporated area of Rowland Heights. Without going into every issue, birthing houses, parachute kids, human trafficking, and boarding house homes are already a problem in Rowland Heights like nowhere else, and living suites will compound these problems. I think Supervisor Kanabe has done a good job working with trafficking, and I think he's starting to work on the parachute kids problem. I am a school board member, and I know these parachute kids exist. You keep telling us what's good for us, but realistically, there's no reliable mechanism to monitor these problems we have now. Whether you want to recognize it or not, these are all being run in our Rowland Heights neighborhoods to make money. Yes, business. You have no idea. We live here. People with money will buy these houses and will take money from others. This will bring them gain, but it will be costly to Rowland Heights. We have property rights too. Sometimes plans are good for certain communities and not for some. Santa Clarita is probably ideal for this type of living suite setting, but not Rowland Heights. We're very different in our needs. Rowland Heights provides more than its fair share of tourism, parachute kids housing, and other bad ways that I've mentioned already. Just ask regional planning, and we don't want any more. I'm not against living suites in other areas, but I do ask that you support the residents by prohibiting living suites in Rowland Heights. This is where I live. You notice it is big business in support of this project. Our request is small, and it is worthy of your attention and a yes vote by each of you. Thank you.
Very good. We have the following individuals that would like to speak. John Yang, Juvenal Hurtado, Tim Shaw. Go ahead, sir. State your name.
My name is John Yang, and I grew up and live in Rowland Heights. I live in a living suite-like condition with my family. It's a generational home. I live with family, and I don't like the way you guys wrote the legislation here because it seems a little bit overbroad, and I know the whole birther living community, what Jeb Bush would like to call anchor babies or whatever, but the way to fix this is not to just change zoning laws. The way is to work with the community. If you think these people are illegally abusing the system to get, kids born here and get citizenship so they can come here, work with us. We will point out every place where we find them. Change the rental laws of, can you use your house as a rental place? Changing zoning laws doesn't make sense. There are many houses out there where generational families. I have best friends from high school who live there with his wife and kids and his parents and his grandparents. And changing zoning laws would affect who knows how many number of places. What you can do is work with the community, talk with us, go go investigate these places that are renting. We know where all of them. You just have to ask. That's all you have to do. We'll tell you where these people are renting. We'll point it out. You can investigate, and it's not a difficult problem. In a year or two ago, there was already like immigration services. I think ICE went in and busted a few at Pheasant Ridge and a few other places throughout LA County, and it's worked. But you need to keep on the pressure, not just say we send in ICE to enforce it once or twice. We need to keep on looking at the businesses. There's Chinese websites that we can, if you need translation, we can point at you that they're running businesses here, and we need to change the business laws that you can't rent residential places as businesses.
Thank you. Next witness.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Honorable Board. My name is Tim Shaw. I'm the Government Affairs Director with the Tri-Counties Association of Realtors. Our association is the local professional association for realtors active in the Rowland Heights, Diamond Bar, and Walnut communities. And certainly we are very interested in seeing Rowland Heights prosper and seeing property values increased, and we want to see Rowland Heights successful. Our board of directors met on this issue and actually unanimously concluded that the outright ban on living suites was actually not warranted. Many of the issues that we've heard, and even heard here today, from maternity homes, illegal conversions, traffic, crime, parking, noise, short-term rentals, all these issues can be addressed short of banning these living suites homes. In fact, we didn't feel that banning living suite homes in the future would do anything to address any of those items. Multi-generational housing is growing across the country. We're seeing people with parents and their adult children wanting to live with them, and this type of product would allow semi-autonomous living in that situation. So there's clearly demand in the market for this product. We think there can be reasonable accommodations if the issue is parking, for example, perhaps a requirement that 3-car garages be built to cut down on the on-street parking or things like that. But a blanket ban we feel is unwarranted and an unnecessary restriction on property rights. So we would respectfully ask you to reconsider this ordinance and not approve what was proposed by the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Julián Hurtado. I live in Rowland Heights, and I received this letter about 2 weeks ago. And my concern is because my wife has Parkinson. We've been dealing with Parkinson for 15 years. Since that disease is progressive, now she's at the stage that she needs 24 hours care. And one of our sons wants to live with us. And I will be a good help for us, for my wife. And now, since they said over here they can have a room as a living suite with a back door on the side. So my son, we were talking about opening a door on the back side. Just, sometimes the daughters-in-law and mothers-in-law, they need a space. So that's why we are talking about opening a door on the back side when they need a space, so they can have the space. And that's my concern. I don't know if they're going to do for the whole city, or maybe they see everybody different situation. Depends on the situation. With permits, they can check our house and my wife, and the situation, maybe with permits, I don't know. I'm just concerned about that. It's not a living rental. It's just for my son that he want to come to help us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll call up next Jack Zhao, Linda Lin, Tony Zong, and they require an interpreter. Jack Zhao?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure.
You can speak.
我觉得这个规定吧太严格了，给我们生活带来很多不方便。
I feel like the written ordinance is too restrictive. It's not flexible enough for our family.
我反对。
So therefore, I'm here to oppose the proposed ordinance. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. We have Linda Lin.
I'm Linda Lin. 我也反对，我觉得
I'm also opposing the proposed ordinance.
我觉得不太人性化。如果一个大 family 有3个祖孙3代的话，很不方便。
I feel like this is not flexible for multi-generational living, since a lot of families are big families.
但我反对就是非法盈利做生意。
I do oppose the illegal activities, illegal businesses, and illegal conversions.
我讲完了。
Oh, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have Tony Song.
你好，你们好。
Hi.
我也持反对的意见，太多。
I'm also opposing the proposed ordinance.
我希望大家生活方便一点。
I think we should have a choice to choose to live with flexible arrangement. Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll call up the following witnesses. Nick Wogan, Oscar Mohammed, Geri Manning, Eric Previn, and Arnold Sachs.
Yes, last week I was speaking about maybe the United States Congress will have an opportunity to read the holy book of the Muslims that we call the Quran, but I didn't give no history about it. But in 1977, Imam Wajdi Muhammad, he invented interfaith group, Muslim, Jews, and Christians, and they come together.
Sir, you're off topic. This is about the role. This is about the Roland Heights amendment to the Community Standards District regarding living suites in homes. It's not public comment yet. You can testify on the matter that's before you about the Roland Heights housing issue, but not something that's off topic.
Thank you. Okay. Nick? Go ahead,
Hi,
sir.
my name is Nick Wogan. I live in Roland Heights. I own my home with my mother. I am getting married in October. And I told my fiance that I'd like to build a den, a kitchen, and a master bedroom for us to live in on my property. So this ordinance seemed to foil my plans. Therefore, I'm opposed to it for that reason. Although after hearing the council speak, I fully understand why we're looking at this. But in my personal case, it seems like it's going to foil my plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Manning?
Hi, Hilda Solis. You call my name Geri more than once. My name is pronounced Geri Manning.
Geri Manning. Very good.
Thank you. I don't understand how the interest of planning and zoning foils this gentleman's plans to build in his home, but whatever happened to live and let live? The unincorporated community of Roland Heights is seeking to build in regulations and prohibiting living suites as a portion of residence that is flexible living arrangements. That's not living and let live. They're not speaking in terms of incorporating a bed and breakfast resort for the effort of corporations for the profit thereof. However, my issue remains to be a human rights issue, and unmanned monocalyptus is a unhuman rights
Ma'am,
issue.
that was the prior
I
item.
know.
This is on
I
the
am
Roland Heights
finding a
CSD.
way to speak what concerns me about the County of Los Angeles with the short period of time that I'm given, I am looking to go further, to go past the County of Los Angeles. But you allow people to say whatever they want. But when I speak, you always interrupt me. Thank you very much.
Arnold Sachs and Eric Previn.
Yes, thank you. It's still morning. Imagine that. Thank you. Being site-specific, I would refer to the previous item. It mentions the Roland Heights Community Standard District within the Puente Zone District. Supervisor Kanabe mentioned that this item be specific to Roland Heights, but would that include the Puente Zone District? Part of Roland Heights, because they're not the same. Just asking about the specifics of the districts that are unnamed and or named in a lot of the agenda items that you have. And I had a question for one of the speakers, came up and asked about this mentions the unincorporated community of Roland Heights. And again, item number 5 just refers to Roland Heights community. Would that be unincorporated? Is there incorporated Roland Heights community and an unincorporated Roland Heights community, which is part of the county's oversight? Just a question.
Mr. Sachs, you're off topic. Please discuss the
agendized item. It talks about the unincorporated community of Roland Heights. So my question would be, is there a different community? Because Supervisor Kanabe, if you listen to what Supervisor Kanabe mentioned, he asked about this item being specific to Roland Heights, not the unincorporated community of Roland Heights.
That's all it is.
So there is no...
There is no incorporated Roland Heights.
That's all I asked. Thank you so much for the information, Supervisor Kanabe, and I'll wait for the bell to ring, and you'll be right.
Go ahead, next speaker.
Right, it is Eric Previn from the 3rd District. Now, Commissioner Smith in this matter voted no. Louis Peterson and Meduno voted yes, and there was an absent Mr. Pinsel, or Miss Pinsel, I don't know, or sorry, Pinsettle, or a typo. In any event, this is a controversy we've been facing for a while, and there's a degree of, it's complicated because you have a neighborhood that may in fact be experiencing some maternity hotels, and you have Mr. Kanabe has been pushed by his constituents to do things about it. A couple years ago, he tried something called the Maternity Hotel Task Force that was led by Bruckner. This is where Bruckner in little Prius puts the red light over, goes out and tries to shut down maternity hotels. It didn't go very well. And frankly, it was timed with a national kind of movement, so it had a reek of politics to it. But that said, now we're past that. They're trying to find some way to do it. So they put some ordinance into place here that they want to get approval for to restrict developers from putting these little living suites that Mr. Ridley Thomas is familiar with these items. Now, you can get more property. You can sell a development if you provide that and make more money. So this is, of course, the issue. But there's the civil rights issue. And quite frankly, the county is going to be sued, I assume, if they move forward with this kind of thing, because there is just the reek of, everybody was an immigrant in this country. You can't say you can't have a large family. How could you say that to a group? And so, politics aside, I just feel like we're exposing ourselves on this. And I would ask, and don't interrupt me, but do respond, would Supervisor Kuehl, could we wait until she comes back? Because she has been a leading fighter for these kinds of rights issues. And I just feel to do this, along with item 19, while the Supervisor Ridley Thomas was out at a Coliseum meeting or something, so he didn't get to hear all the interesting points about American golf. We need to get sure we have a group who's here in quorum and listening to what's before the Board of Supervisors. So that's my request. Delay it.
We have a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move it.
Okay, we have a motion. Second.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment or a read-in motion.
Yes.
On September 29th, 2015, the board indicated its intent to approve an ordinance allowing the construction of living suites throughout the unincorporated Los Angeles County. Actually, before I do this amendment, I want the planning folks to sort of comment on some of the comments that were made. I mean, like the gentleman with his specific issue would not be impacted by this. This is for large new developments. Am I correct?
That's right, Supervisor. Living suites are only allowed in new residential subdivisions, single-family residential subdivisions, or apartment buildings. The ordinance before you does not prevent anybody from asking to put a couple of rooms added onto their house with a bathroom. It does not prevent anyone from asking to build a guest house or a second unit. This is only living suites that are part of new residential or apartment projects in the county.
So my question is, two witnesses that came before us wouldn't be impacted, the gentleman with his wife who has a disease and son will come in, the gentleman that's going to be married and wants to have a separate
We've talked
with them?
We've talked to that gentleman, our staff has, and he'll come into our field office and we can work through that issue with him.
And I would recommend that for the other family as well. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I appreciate the clarification. Anyway, going back on September 29th, the board indicated its intent to approve an ordinance allowing the construction of these living suites. At that meeting, residents of Rowland Heights expressed strong concerns that this housing type is inconsistent with the single-family residential character of the community. Over 97% of the residential land in Rowland Heights is zoned for single-family residential housing, with nearly two-thirds of those units occupied by their owner. Adoption of the ordinance before us today will help Rowland Heights retain its single-family residential character. Under the ordinance, the board reviewed in 2015, living suites could be built in almost any area of Rowland Heights, including the very high fire hazard severity zone and areas concurrently zoned for industrial uses. Adoption of this ordinance will help keep the higher density housing developments away from areas at risk for wildfire and closer to existing infrastructure that will help retain our industrial areas for job protection. So I therefore move that we close the public hearing and we find that the adoption of the proposed ordinance amending section 22.44.132C of the Planning and Zoning Code is exempt from review under the California Environmental Quality Act, and to instruct County Council to prepare the final ordinance to bring back to the board at a future meeting. I so move.
Item has been moved and seconded, and I do want to commend Supervisor Kanabe and our staff for reaching this agreement because it's critical and how it can possibly impact some of our districts as well. So I thank you. Okay, this item is moved and seconded as amended. Public hearing has been closed. This item is moved. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, item 19 was tabled earlier, and Supervisor Kanabe requested to be recorded as abstain, and this item is now before you.
Okay, this item is moved by, I'll move it. I have a second. Seconded by Ridley Thomas. Without objection, motion passed with one abstention. Okay, very good. Moving on now to special items and adjournments, starting with District 4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move today that we adjourn in memory of Louis Rios, a San Pedro resident, longshoreman, and beloved football coach who was tragically killed on Saturday, August 13th. Rios coached and mentored dozens of South Bay and Harbor area boys, including his own sons, who are now achieving success in the roles at various high school sports teams in San Pedro, Harbor City, the Palos Verdes Peninsula, and Long Beach. He is survived by his wife and 4 sons, aged 5 to 16, tragic accident, and beloved member of the community. To him and his family, our strongest thoughts, prayers, and condolences. Also today that we adjourn in memory of Dolores Wojak, a longtime Long Beach resident who passed away suddenly on August 21st at the age of 73. She loved spending time with the grandchildren and was extremely proud of each of them, especially Kevin, who was one of the 19 Granite Mountain Hotshots fire crew that lost their lives in Yarnell, Arizona in 2013. She's survived by her 4 children, our dear friend Joe, James, Geri, and Kathy, and many grandchildren. She was a loving mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. She'll be truly missed by her family and friends. And those are my adjournments, Madam Chair.
Without objection, Supervisor Antonovich.
First, I'd like to To move that we adjourn memory of William Leonard Plunkett, longtime resident of San Marino, passed away at the age of 87, graduate of Harvard Military High School and Amherst College. He owned the Volkswagen dealership in Tujunga for over 20 years. He was the chairman of the VW National Dealers Association, president of the Los Angeles Rotary Club, member of the San Marino Community Church. Bill was a good friend, a good supporter. He was quite involved in his community, very involved with all the nonprofits, active member of the San Marino Community Church, and he is survived by his wife of 54 years and their daughter, Patricia. John Hedlund passed away at the age of 89. He was a Navy veteran in both World War II and the Korean War. His degrees were from Iowa State University and his doctorate of jurisprudence from Drake University. He owned the California Offset Printing and was the past president, part owner of the Burbank Daily Review and Glendale News Press and One Central Bank in Glendale. He had been awarded the Liberty Bell Award by the Glendale Bar Association and in 2000 the William Booth Award by the Salvation Army. He was past president of the Glendale Unified Board of Education, and then when he moved to Orange County, he was president of the Garden Grove School Board. John is survived by his two daughters. John was quite involved in all of my campaigns going back to the early years, a community leader in not just Glendale and Orange County, but in Southern California. Gus Leona's Anton passed away on August 12th at age 86. He was an active member of St. Anthony's Greek Orthodox Church and also quite involved in the community, and he is survived by his wife and their two children. Bob Wright worked for Century 21, valuable member of the Foothill Unity Center in Monrovia for over 30 years. He was an active member in the Monrovia Duarte Arcadia Town Council, a great leader, and he is survived by his brother and his sister-in-law. Arthur Hiller, Academy Award nominated director, passed away at the age of 92 with more than 70 featured films, best known for The Out-of-Towners, Plaza Suite, and Love Story. He was president of the Directors Guild of America and the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science. He's survived by his daughter, Erica, and their son, Henrik, and 5 grandchildren. Arthur was a personal friend and quite involved in the community and many events we attended frequently. John Henry Johansson III passed away at the age of 79. Graduate of Santa Clara University, worked for his grandfather's independent brokerage firm, Cass & Johansson, and involved in many organizations, including the Rossmore Rotary and the Friends of the Lafayette Creeks. And he is survived by his wife and 3 children, and his family were also personal, longtime supporters and involved in the Los Angeles County. William Anderson worked for the Los Angeles County Department of Parks and Recreation for 31 years, and he passed away at the age of 77. He was a member of the American Legion, Disabled Veterans National Foundation. He is survived by his wife, Charlene. Another good friend, longtime supporter, Alana Hansen, passed away at the age of about 85. She was a graduate of USC, volunteered with Town and Gown. Alana was survived by her husband of 61 years and their 2 children, her husband Jack. Alana's mother and Alana and Jack were quite involved in the Los Feliz area and many of the philanthropic organizations and really good community leaders and very good friends. William Albert McClure passed away at the age of 76. He worked for the County of Los Angeles for 45 years. He joined when he was 31. He's survived by his wife and their children. John McLaughlin, the TV host, former aide to President Nixon, passed away at the age of 89, graduate of LaSalle Academy, and became an ordained priest in 1959. His master's degree in philosophy and English literature from Boston College, and a doctorate from Columbia University. He joined President Nixon's speechwriting team in 1971. He was a columnist for National Review, and then he became the creator, executive producer, and host of the popular McLaughlin Group, a political talk show which he moderated until a week before his passing. And I would present both sides discussing the various political issues of the week. Robert Ross, retired sergeant, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. He joined the department in 1960, retiring from the Homicide Bureau in 1990. Saul Everett Halpert, the legendary TV broadcast news reporter, passed with the age of 93, served as a lieutenant in the United States Army, a graduate of the University of Southern California, and his master's degree in journalism from California State University, Los Angeles. He founded the news department at Channel 7, ABC TV, and was reporter for KNXT and KNBC, where he received the Golden Mike from the Television News Association of Southern California. And he is survived by his son, Jim, and their 4 grandchildren, and his caregiver, Carmen. Saul reported on many of the events that I participated in. He was a fair reporter and a good man and quite involved in the community. So those are my adjournments, and then I would also like to move that we adjourn memory. No, those are my motions for adjournment. Then I have a motion I want to read. A 26-year-old Michelle June Roos was last seen leaving her residence on the 42,000 block of 51st Street West in Lancaster at 11 p.m. on May 9th, 2013. Sheriff investigators have exhausted all leads and believe that suspicious circumstances caused her disappearance. The Homicide Bureau is seeking public assistance with any information that may lead to the arrest or conviction of the persons responsible for her disappearance. I move that we offer a $20,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and or conviction of the person or persons responsible for the heinous crime against 26-year-old Michelle June Roos. So move.
Okay, it's moved and seconded.
And
There's no
then,
objection. Such will be the order.
I would just like to, well, the board has passed this motion on Assemblyman Mendoza's bill on dealing with the MTA. If he was interested in having a real regional body, he ought to look at ensuring that, let's say, the Long Beach, Antelope Valley, Santa Cruz would be members. But right now, 87 cities have 4 representatives. Los Angeles City has 4 representatives. And then we have the 5 board or supervisor representatives. If they wanted to ensure that we kept the body at the 13 number, then take 3 of the city of Los Angeles and divide them with representing the other 87 cities, or having them include with Long Beach as 1 and the Antelope Valley, Santa Cruz with the other 2, but have that type of a configuration which would have a regional approach instead of right now what we currently have. But our board is unanimous in opposing his idea of taking members away from the county of Los Angeles, which makes no sense. And then there is another bill. This was an editorial in the Daily News on August 14th. It's talk about draining wallets just by changing some definitions. And this is to allow, without a vote of the people, a water tax to be levied by counties or local governments. And again, that's a camel's nose under the tent. But anytime you're having these types of large which is $1 billion plus proposition, that ought to be voted on by the people, not by a legislative body. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Supervisor Ridley Thomas, do you have any adjournments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Permit me to read in a motion that we will consider next week, essentially to put before us the matter of the city's bond measure. Reads as follows: the